as they come in.
Election 2017 Results Night, Thursday at 9:55 on BBC One.
Now on BBC One, tonight's news with Kate Silverton.
Labour accuses the Conservatives of being in chaos over their tax plans after cabinet ministers suggest income tax won't rise. But that's not a pledge made in the Conservative manifesto, and Theresa May wouldn't commit to it.
Our position on tax hasn't changed. It's the Conservative Party that always has been and is and always will be a low-tax party.
One minister says they're going to give no more tax rises, indeed possibly tax reductions for the very wealthiest. Then they can't answer the question about tax rises for the rest of the population.
Ariana Grande visits fans injured in last month's bomb attack ahead of tomorrow's charity concert in aid of victims and their families. More violence in Kabul. At least 7 are dead and 100 injured after suicide bombers target a funeral attended by Afghanistan's deputy leader. Hello, very good evening to you. Jeremy Corbyn has accused the Conservatives of being in complete chaos over their tax policy. It comes after Theresa May failed to back comments made by cabinet colleagues that there would be no income tax rises under a Conservative government. The manifesto makes no commitment towards income tax, but both the Defence Secretary, Sir Michael Fallon, and the Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson, said the tax would not rise if the Tories won the election. With more, our political correspondent Ian Watson.
To rally the Conservative vote, senior ministers, including the Defence Secretary and the Foreign Secretary, have been suggesting that income tax wouldn't rise if they're re-elected. But the Conservative manifesto doesn't make those promises. So, days from an election, is it being hastily rewritten?
Well, our position on tax hasn't changed. We've set it out in the manifesto. What people will know when they go to vote on Thursday is that it's the Conservative Party that always has been and is and always will be a low-tax party. And it's our firm intention to reduce taxes for ordinary working families.
So what does the Conservative manifesto say on tax? Well, at the last election, David Cameron promised not to increase income tax, national insurance or VAT. But in the 2017 manifesto, only the pledge on VAT remains. If Theresa May is returned to number 10 Downing Street, she has the prospect of tough Brexit talks ahead, and her manifesto doesn't box her in on income tax. There is no pledge not to increase it. But she and her colleagues are talking about tax today because they want to refocus attention in this campaign on what would happen if a Labour Chancellor moves in to number 11 Downing Street.
How are you doing? You all right?
I am now. I've met you.
But Labour say they've nothing to hide on tax. They claim a policy of making the better off and big business pay more is popular, and it's the Conservatives who lack clarity.
Well, I think there's complete chaos going on at the top of the government. Let's be clear, what Labour are offering is no tax rises or national insurance rises or VAT rises for 95% of the population, an increase in corporation tax and some other tax increases at the top end to pay for social care.
Lib Dems say they'd increase income tax to boost health spending and accuse the Conservatives of trying to shift attention away from their policies on social care.
It may well be an attempt to shift the attention away from the dementia tax, which has cost Theresa May a lot of credibility. But by moving on to taxation, they're not helping themselves because they've been very arrogant. They've refused to spell out which taxes they would raise. They know they're going to have to raise taxes.
Theresa May is still ahead in the polls, so probably isn't looking for divine intervention. Tonight, she was visiting a Hindu temple in London. She wants to broaden her support, but moving the agenda onto tax today has turned out to be a mixed blessing.
OK, well, as you can see, Ian joins us. So where does this leave us tonight then, Ian? Are we any clearer in terms of Tory tax plans?
I think what we are clear on, Kate, is two things. First of all, the Conservatives wanted to move the agenda onto tax today and away from social care, where they feel far more vulnerable. I think where we're also clear is they wanted to offer reassurance to core Conservative voters that their instincts on tax haven't changed. But I think the execution of it has been rather messy, because we've had Michael Fallon, Defence Secretary, saying, look, absolutely no increases in income tax. We've had Boris Johnson saying no plans to increase income tax. We've had, as you heard, Theresa May saying no change in the manifesto, which gives no such commitment and simply doesn't say anything on that particular topic. So I think although that execution has been a little bit messy, it's also given the opportunity for the opposition parties to say not only is it chaotic, but also, I think, to smell blood. Because as I understand it, tomorrow the Shadow Chancellor, John McDonnell, is going to say that Labour even hopes to reduce VAT, putting more pressure on the Conservatives. Now, that isn't a firm policy commitment, as I understand it, but it does show that the opposition are now a bit more comfortable talking about tax.
Ian, thank you very much. The Deputy Leader of Afghanistan, Abdullah Abdullah, has survived a bomb attack at a funeral in the capital, Kabul. At least 7 people were killed and over 100 injured in the explosions. The funeral was taking place of the son of a prominent politician. He was killed yesterday during clashes between demonstrators and police. From Kabul, Secunda Kamani sent this report, which does contain images which you may find distressing.
Bloodshed in a graveyard. 3 suicide bombers targeted mourners at this cemetery as they were burying a man shot by police yesterday during a protest against the growing violence in Kabul. Survivors described the carnage they had witnessed.
There were explosions everywhere, and I saw my hands and face were burning. There were parts of human bodies lying all around me. After that, I had to get to hospital.
This is the 3rd time in 4 days that dead and injured Afghans have been brought to emergency hospitals across the city. Kabul used to be one of the most secure places in the country. Now it seems it's one of the most dangerous. Relatives gathered outside the hospital, anxious for news of their loved ones. This man was describing to us how the suicide bombers blew themselves up one after another when suddenly gunfire rang out. It turned out to be warning shots from the police, but it's a measure of how tense the city is. Kabul is still reeling from the aftermath of a huge blast on Wednesday, which killed over 90 people. Many residents are furious with the authorities for not providing better security. One of the leaders of the unity government was at the funeral today. I asked him why so many attacks seem to be succeeding.
I would say that we will raise this issue very seriously within our own system.
But you're not considering your own position and resigning?
If that would have been the solution, that would have been the first thing that I would have resorted to.
There's real anger here at the rising tide of violence, but it seems no one, not the government and not the international community, knows how to stop it. Secunda Kamani, BBC News, Kabul.
And dozens of civilians are reported to have been killed in the Iraqi city of Mosul. They were among those fleeing an area controlled by the Islamic State group. One American aid worker in the district claims to have witnessed IS fighters shooting people trying to escape. The battle by the military to retake the city has been ongoing for months. Ariana Grande, the singer whose concert was the target, of course, of the Manchester bomb, has visited injured fans in hospital. Tomorrow evening, she'll be joined by other stars of the music world in a charity concert in aid of victims and their families. From Manchester, Philip Norton reports.
Helping to mend broken hearts and shattered lives. Pop star Ariana Grande visiting young fans who were injured in the suicide bomb attack at her concert less than 2 weeks ago. She posted a photo of her visit to Royal Manchester Children's Hospital on Instagram with a simple heart. Among those she visited, 8-year-old fan Lily Harrison. She suffered spinal injuries in the blast at Manchester Arena.
Our room was the last room on the ward of the corridor, as you know, sort of how she was working her way up it, so we were the last ones to be seen. So I think I was probably just as nervous as Lily at first, but you know, her hands were shaking. She was, you know, she said, "Oh, I think I might need to go to the toilet. I just don't know what to do. I'm really nervous." And then, yeah, she just came skipping onto our ward. She was brilliant.
There's been an outpouring of love for the 22 victims who died in the blast last month. Ariana Grande has returned to the UK for a benefit concert in Manchester tomorrow night, and many of those injured, including Lily, are hoping to be there.
Lily sort of expressed a wish to go. We didn't want to force her. We've said if you want to go, we'll make sure we've got tickets. But if on the day or if we get to the venue, we're on the way to the venue. If you say you don't want to go, we're more than happy to bring you home. It's whatever she wants.
Proceeds from the concert will go towards the We Love Manchester Emergency Fund, set up by Manchester City Council and the British Red Cross to support grieving families and victims of the bombing. Preparations are now well underway. A huge stage and tight security is in place, an effort that would normally take months of planning being completed within days. And this is where the eyes of the world will be focused tomorrow night. Millions of people will watch as Ariana Grande is joined on the stage with the likes of Coldplay, Take That and Katy Perry. This concert will be broadcast to more than 50 countries around the world, a night of unity, remembrance and a shared love of music. Philip Norton, BBC News, at Old Trafford Cricket Ground.
Now, it's been called a once-in-a-lifetime exhibition. Raphael, the Drawings, has opened at the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, bringing together 120 rarely seen works from collections around the world. The aim to shine a new light on the Renaissance master, whose reputation was more for precision than emotion. Our arts editor, Will Gompertz, has been to take a look.
The Transfiguration by Raphael, who died when only 37 years old, this being his last masterpiece. Confirmation of a supreme talent with a reputation for clarity and control. But that is superficial. Beneath the surface lies another Raphael, a surprisingly experimental artist who could draw with the freedom and expressiveness of a jazz musician.
What we see here is he's moving away from the kinds of traditions that he's inherited. So he's trying to infuse this very traditional image of the Madonna and Child with a real tenderness, a real human sympathy and naturalism. And it's that element of human sympathy that makes Raphael different, that shows us where he's going. And it's through drawing that he can explore this kind of expressiveness. This is an amazing drawing. It shows Raphael in an absolute burst of brainstorming creativity, madly drawing with the pen. It's hugely adventurous, hugely febrile. It's like a volcano. There's all this energy in the drawing going on. He's chasing his thoughts on paper really, really fast.
It's messy.
It's very messy.
With these drawings of Raphael's, do we meet a different artist to the one we maybe think we know from the painting? Somebody who's much more emotional, much more experimental?
I think that's absolutely right. He's very, very expressive in these drawings and often very adventurous in the way that he is using drawing as a way of conveying emotion. And here we really do see him exploring quite profound emotions in the drawings and creating forms that are moving, that are deeply moving. When I saw these drawings coming out of their crates as they arrived for the exhibition installation, you know, I was moved to tears at times. I mean, that's the magic of the drawing.
Raphael gave this picture to his contemporary, the German artist Albrecht Dürer, to show he too could draw like a master. An assertion visitors to this exhibition are unlikely to contest. Will Gompertz, BBC News.
Now, let's take you to the sport with John Watson, who's at the BBC Sports Centre for us. Hi, John.
Good evening, Kate. Many thanks. Real Madrid have lifted the European Cup for a record-extending 12th time following a 4-1 victory over Juventus in Cardiff tonight. Cristiano Ronaldo scored twice as the Welsh capital hosted the Champions League final for the first time. Ollie Foster reports.
Cardiff has staged some of the great sporting occasions, FA Cup finals, a Rugby World Cup final. Tens of thousands, more fans than tickets, packed the city today. Even before the Manchester bombing, this was always going to be a major security operation. But the extra patience required was more than worth it for a seat at the match of the season.
The team sheet tonight reads like a who's who of the great players in European football. Ronaldo, Higuain, Buffon, Benzema. But Gareth Bale's homecoming, he's only going to start on the bench.
There was the usual razzmatazz before kick-off. The Black Eyed Peas put on a decent show.
Well, a huge roar has just erupted from the stadium behind me. Real Madrid have another European Cup. So many superlatives to use about this match. Juventus have been brilliant this season, but yet again, as we've seen, Real Madrid and Cristiano Ronaldo just that much better. John.
Indeed they were. Ollie Foster live in Cardiff for us tonight. Many thanks indeed. Aidan O'Brien's 40-1 shot Wings of Eagles won today's Epsom Derby. Jockey Podra Beggy in his first ride in the race brought the horse home from deep in the field to beat favourite Cliffs of Moher and Cracksman, who was ridden by Frankie Dettori in third. And Andy Murray beat Juan Martín del Potro in straight sets to reach the fourth round of the French Open as he looks to replicate his run to last year's final. The British number 2 Carl Edmund is out, beaten by South Africa's Kevin Anderson. Adam Wilde reports.
The backdrop is instantly recognisable. Centre stage in Paris, unmistakable. In more recent times, epic encounters in Rio's Olympic final and in the Davis Cup, hard fought and rarely brief. From such blows, it can be difficult to recover. Murray now finally finding those flashes of his brilliant best that have been all too rare of late, keeping...
And the British and Irish Lions rugby union team beat the provincial Barbarians 13 points to 7 in their first tour match of New Zealand. And that, Kate, is all your sport.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed. Well, you can see much more, of course, on all of today's stories on the BBC News channel. That's all from me and the team here, so a very good night to you. Bye-bye.
Hello there. We've got cooler, fresher air across the UK this weekend. It was fine when the sunshine was out today, but we did have